Hello, I am Red Mage, and welcome to a Magic the Gathering video featuring the color red. In today's video, Rakdos Anvil in Pre-Eldraine Standard. I've been playing different versions of this deck on and off since the printing of Oni-Cult Anvil in Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. It is an incredibly fun card, and with the right builds in the right metagame, this deck can win a lot. So, the core of the deck is formed by 4 copies each of Oni-Cult Anvil, Bloodtithe Harvester, Voldaren Epicure, Voltage Surge, and Mishra's Research Desk. Oni-Cult Anvil is a 2-mana artifact with the abilities whenever one or more artifacts you control leave the battlefield during your turn, create a 1/1 colorless construct artifact creature token. This ability triggers only once each turn. And tap, sacrifice an artifact. Oni-Cult Anvil deals 1 damage to each opponent. You gain 1 life. And so we want cheap artifacts and artifact producing cards that provide sacrifice fodder for the Anvil. Bloodtithe Harvester and Voldaren Epicure are cheap creatures with artifacts stapled to them in the form of blood tokens. Voltage Surge, an incredible versatile removal spell, and Mishra's Research Desk, card advantage and selection. These are the cards that, in my opinion, you should definitely play 4 of in the deck. The rest of the deck then gets filled out with other finishers, removal, and card drawer selection, and your specific choices will depend on the specific format and metagame that you're aiming for. I play best of one almost exclusively, so this build of the deck is weighted more towards answering aggro decks than it otherwise would be. In addition to the Voltage Surge and Bloodtithe Harvesters, we have 2 Cut Down, 2 Annihilating Glare, and 3 Go for the Throat for removal. There are 2 Blood Fountains, which create a blood token and can be sacrificed to return creatures from your graveyard to your hand. Then there are 7 3-mana cards that can win the game on their own if unanswered. 4 copies of Ob Nixilis, the Adversary, 2 Urabrask's Forge, and 1 Braids Arisen Nightmare. Ob Nixilis is a planeswalker that the big deal is you can sacrifice a creature when you cast it to get 2 copies. You can then -2 1 copy to create a devil, +1 the other copy, and get the discard or loss of life and gain 2 life at the same time. Urabrask's Forge is an artifact that gets an oil counter at the beginning of combat on your turn. Then you create an X1 token with Trample and Haste, where X is the number of oil counters. So the first turn is a 1/1, then a 2/1, then a 3/1, etc. The fact that the Forge is an artifact isn't particularly synergistic with the deck, since you don't want to sacrifice it. It's just there to provide inevitability. But in a pinch, you can sacrifice it to a Voltage Surge to stay alive. Braids is a 3/3 that gives you the ability to sacrifice a permanent at the end of your turn to force your opponent to either sacrifice a permanent of the same type or lose 2 life and you draw a card. Braids is both a card advantage engine and a way to get your opponent's life total to 0 without attacking. Notice how many cards involve sacrificing artifacts for value outside of Anvil. Other than Cut Down and Go for the Throat, every card in the deck either can be sacrificed for value or is an outlet for sacrificing artifacts to get value. Ob Nixilis, Braids, and Annihilating Glare can also take advantage of the tokens from the Forge, despite them not being artifacts. As for the mana base, it's all pretty standard, except the Mycosynth Gardens, which can be turned into a copy of an artifact you control. That's very useful, but it doesn't produce colored mana, efficiently anyway. So I only play 2 and play 24 total lands to avoid getting color screwed too often. The deck list is in the description. What you're going to see next is the first game of a standard event I played with this deck, which was an incredible nail-biter against Mono Red, followed by highlights from other games from that event. And then we'll come back at the end to wrap up and talk about possible changes for the deck. I went 7-1 in this event, so I'm pretty happy with this build, but that doesn't mean it couldn't be better. Enjoy the gameplay. Game 1 of this league. Totally keepable hand, not impressive at all, but completely fine. That's the power of Epicure. You have the blood token, you can cycle to get whatever you might need. I hate to not play something, but with Kamano going off with the counter on Phase 2, Chapter 2, they're surely going to play something that I'm going to want to kill. I'm going to use Go for the Throat to be mana efficient. I don't think that's giving up too much compared to having Voltage Surge at 1 mana. So ideally I would play Ob Nixilis here. Kamano though makes that sketchy because you'd want to chump block with the Devil, but it would prevent the trigger from going off because it exiles and it doesn't die and deal 1 damage. Killing the Kamano here before end the festivities exiles my Epicures. That way if I draw, what is it, the Blood Fountain, I can get the Epicures back later. Being at 17 life here feels pretty good, but we don't have that much going on. We definitely need to draw something that allows us to casualty our Ob Nixilis. That's perfect, actually. That is perfect. Alright, so Epicure. Ob Nixilis. This allows us to gain life immediately. They're going to focus so much of their combat damage on the Ob Nixilises to get rid of them. And they don't have a Kamano in play to exile the Devil token, so we can kill the Mishra's Foundry or a Bloodthirsty Adversary if we choose to do that.
My empire crumbles.
Alright, so we can't protect the Ob Nixilis. In this case, I think it's probably best to just kill the Adversary when we have the chance. That'll save us life down the road. But we're completely out of resources. Not great. that's at least a blocker, but we should start with the desk. See what we get. We can always cast the Epicure if we don't hit anything worthwhile. Alright, so we definitely can't afford the Forge here. It's questionable whether we want the Harvester now, if the last card in their hand is a Play with Fire, for example. But I think it makes sense. It might be, and that would be bad for sure, but being able to block either the Swift Spear or the Foundry is worth the risk, I think. Okay, so they clearly don't have anything. Okay. They'll attack with Feldon only. Okay. Well, that's good for us. Okay. That's great. So they didn't have anything. I can see the argument for killing the Swift Spear with the Harvester now, in case they draw a Play with Fire. I think we'll wait. We're holding them off completely if they don't draw that. Yeah, they do. Okay. Well, that's bad. But at a bare minimum, we're still preventing them from targeting us with the lightning strike. Okay, another cutdown's not bad. We really want an anvil so we can just get some consistent life gain. I'm kind of surprised they're not trading the Epicure here. I think I would do that if I were them. As it turns out, we don't have any sweepers in our deck, but they don't know that, and I would rather kind of force the trade now and prevent us from being able to chump block later on. As it is, the Forge doesn't really do anything. Like, we need defensive stuff, so I think we need a Blood Fountain for an Epicure plus a Harvester, since we can't cast the Harvester this turn. But we can cast the Epicure, so we'll go ahead and do that. And this way, you know, we've got some options. That's interesting. Well, we're definitely going to block one of the Epicures and trade there. Are we just going to chump a Swift Spear? Maybe. I think so. It's... I mean, this doesn't look good. I think we're going to end up losing this game. But we want to stay out of burn range if we can, and the Epicure doesn't serve any specific function. Braids is a pretty good draw. I mean, mostly just because it's a 3/3. We'll get some value. Out of it, but mostly it just blocks. So, okay. Well, I mean, that's not so bad because they have to cast it this turn. Yeah, so we get to trade with the Swift Spear if they attack. And we just take 2 from the chick. That's not, that could be a lot worse. Huh. So we can sacrifice the Harvester to the Ob Nixilis this turn, gain 2 life, go up to 7. But then all we have is the Devil. The chick is to kill one of the Ob Nixilis. But we can trade with the Foundry if they... There's also the Squee though, man. Well, I guess we start by just cycling the mountain before we decide what we're going to do. Another Ob Nixilis, okay. Well, I think we have to. It's not great though. Like, there's a super good chance that we just die this turn.
I've conquered entire plains. One city. Go sow some chaos. Defy me. And
but if they can't kill us for sure, and they have to go after the Ob Nixilis, we at least have another turn to gain some more life with the other Ob Nixilis or something. Figure something out. All at us. So is that... I think we're still alive. I guess we still kill the Squee. Takes up resources so they can't have Squee and the Foundry. Okay. Well. Oh, wait. They're at 4. I can just plus both the Ob Nixilis and they're dead. That's awesome.
Pleasure doing defy me. And you
well, there you go. Sort of the secret against mono red, right, is that you can... If you can put significant pressure on them where you're actually racing their clock and gaining life at the same time, you can win the race. This is an incredible hand. And this is why, I mean, surely it goes without saying for the most part, but this is why you play the Pain Lands, right? Like, completely worth it to have untapped mana. Ooh. Well, that's unfortunate, but it doesn't it's not really that big of a deal. So kill that. So we don't know for sure. Like, this could still be either soldiers or legends. We can just kill the Adeline and keep going. Oh, airtime. Okay, that makes sense. I mean, that's totally fine.
I don't need respect, just obedience. Your punishment is my entertainment.
The AO, that's definitely bad for us. But it's not necessarily the end of the world. Like, they're gonna get our Ob Nixilis. That's a weird block. That's fine though.
By coin or carnage, tribute is owed.
So we could theoretically minus there and get the devil, since we're going to lose the Ob Nixilis anyway. But by plussing, we essentially gain 5 life because the AO has to attack the Ob Nixilis instead of us. I think I killed the Rafine there just to prevent all the value. And then I'm going to copy the Anvil so that I can max out on life gain value. Another Rafine. Okay, well, obviously, if I would have known that, I would have done something differently, but that sucks. Now they gain life. That is a big problem. I am going to just chump block here to slow their clock down by a turn. So we can prevent them from gaining life this turn, but we need something big to get back in it. If I were them, I would be pumping up the AO because we're going to block and prevent them from gaining life anyway. So I'm not really going to get anywhere by attacking next turn. I think that means I want to just sacrifice a 1/1 now to gain the life. I mean, I guess I will get somewhere by attacking with the Forge token. Okay. Alright. Okay. So again here, I think I needed to keep it churning with the Anvil activations, both the draining and the gaining. It's probably not realistic that I'll activate Blood Fountain, so I'm going to sacrifice that. Okay, well, that works. And we'll sacrifice that.
me their adversary. I lied. You work for me now, run.
There's no way they can kill us, and there's no way they can survive. I don't really see how they have any chance, but... there you have it. So they'd be dead either from the Ob Nixilis or the two anvils. And that's part of why we continued to activate the anvils, sacrificing tokens that we didn't have to, just so we could continue draining them in addition to gaining life. So this is an interesting situation. There's a good chance they have a counterspell of some kind. We want them to target the research desk. So we're going to play that first before playing a land and see what they do. I mean, it looks like they're thinking about countering it. So I think what we need to do in that case is just play the Blood Fountain, and we'll play activate the research desk at the end of their next turn. So I don't want to get the anvil countered. So you see now they're gonna kill the harvester because they didn't have anything to counter, which, you know, is bad. We don't want them to do that, but they could have done that on the next turn anyway. Oh, but they just have dissipate. Okay, well this is fine because we definitely care more about the anvil than the harvester. So they might have Wandering Emperor. There's not too much we can do about that. But I would say if they do have it, now is the time to make them choose between a counterspell and Wandering Emperor. So we'll go ahead and cast the Forge. Okay. So that's not a great result for us, but they did spend their entire turn on a negate, and we got an attack and continued to use the anvil. I think there's a reasonable chance they have Farewell. So I'm gonna block here. Well, apparently not. Or they're just gonna wait to cast it until they get the other anvil. That seems reasonable too. Wow. That... oh, they're sacrificing it. Gotcha, to make disappear. Okay. Well, I mean, that's a pretty good sign. That means they almost certainly do not have Farewell in hand. And if that's the case, I think I just cycle here. I'm going to go ahead and play that land. We don't have any blood tokens currently anyway, and I want to, you know, build up some mana so we can Blood Fountain and play Bloodtithe Harvester in the same turn if we draw another untapped land next turn. Wow. So they just draw a bunch of cards. Okay, well. Surely they must have a Wrath of some kind. So I'm just going to wait and get the Harvester back end of turn with the Blood Fountain. Okay. Yeah. That's fine. That's no big deal. But certainly glad to wait to get the Harvester back. I don't think Go for the Throat is particularly useful against this Esper control deck. So they drew Wandering Emperor. Alright. This is not good. They're exiling the Harvester.
I'm going to end.
So they're gaining life.
This is what.
But at least we get to kill the Emperor. So it's not looking great at this point. They just have too much going on, and I've drawn all of the removal part of my hand, or part of my deck. And a 7 mana Memory Deluge is bad news for sure. Alright. Yeah, there's just really not anything left that we can do.
Fine. I'm home. You're done.
Smart of them to exile instead of trying to make a creature, because if I have a removal spell, that doesn't work. Oh, yikes. That's rough. Yeah, I just don't, at this point, there's just no way. Okay. Yeah. Gonna go ahead and play Blackcleave Cliffs since it comes into play tapped. We can always save the Sulfurous Springs to cycle, but this is way over. Wow, that's hilarious. Thing, and then they've got it. That is a large number of poison counters. I always want to lead with the Epicure in this situation when it's a choice between that and the research desk. Because you're not going to sacrifice the research desk on turn 2, and so you're really just giving up a turn of using your anvil. In this case, so the Vanguard is not the most critical threat, but it's going to make it difficult to kill everything else anyway, and we can kind of like take an aggressive position. We've got some card draw in the desk and the Blood Fountain, so I think we just go for it. There we go. Since it's the only creature out there, the cut down does work. So this is not great for me, but you know, having an extra turn where they have nothing going on, killing the one before, still helps out tremendously versus let them have a full turn with it out there. Full turn cycle. Now we're gonna still hope to get like a... Oh, well, that's gonna be good. I was gonna say hope to get a Go for the Throat or something. Some kind of removal spell. I think in this case... Oh, well, they're just going to give up. That's perfectly reasonable. Okay, we are back to wrap up. I love this deck. Obviously, it did very well. 7-1 is a great record. Changes that I would make, very few. The Mycosynth Gardens is the main thing that I'm concerned about. 2 colorless lands is a big liability. I think it's reasonable to consider either switching this out for another land, possibly cutting it just entirely and going down to 23 lands, playing another Blood Fountain. You could also switch one copy out for a Mirex. That's something I haven't tried before, but it does give you colored mana the turn it comes into play, and then it produces artifacts as well. It's a, you know, just a different sort of utility land for an artifact themed deck. Other than that, in Best of One specifically, I would consider cutting one Forge, going down to only one copy in the deck, This is an incredible card. If the metagame was all black mid-range decks, I would want 4 of this. But since Best of One is so aggro-centric, cutting this for maybe a Sheoldred might be a good idea. You can really customize this deck however you want to. For me, the Ob Nixilis is really what the deck is all about. Obviously, Anvil is what the deck is all about, but Ob Nixilis is what puts it over the top as something that can really go the distance. You saw our one loss in this event to Esper Control, and we lost that game even without them casting Farewell. They just had so much card advantage. But to beat Farewell control decks, Ob Nixilis is really where you want to be. It's not great against aggro, but the life gain and the devil tokens are pretty good there. It can really make the difference between lasting long enough against mono red to eventually kill them and not getting there. All right. I'm not going to talk too much about new Eldraine cards to go in this. Once that gets released, we'll kind of figure out what cards might be good to include here. Let me know what you think in the comments would be good inclusions from the new Eldraine set, and I'll see you in the next one.